OM Jesus! Boys, girls, in between, how are you? It is I, Red Gambit, and I have brought along with me the finest superhero aficionado available. He always wears his underwear on the outside. Mr. Nayrman, how are you?
I'm doing pretty well. How about yourself?
It's too damn early in the morning, as always. That's how I'm feeling.
Well, that's what happens when you live in Australia and I live in the States, so, yeah.
It's entirely my fault, isn't it? That's what you're saying.
No, it's the way the Earth is shaped. It's fault.
Oh, just pick a side, man. Come on. Anyway, on that incredibly awkward note, we're going to move on to the topics that matter most to you in the world of geek and gaming culture this week. First off the bat is the fact that the Batman and Superman trailer was first leaked, and then Warner Bros. And Zack Snyder obviously just decided, fuck it, ran out of fucks, and just went ahead and released it. So I actually saw both versions, and they weren't really very much different aside from the fact that the original was subtitled and was in Portuguese or Spanish or something. I don't know. I'm terrible with languages. But yeah, just it was crappy quality, but we got to see the good quality version, and the good quality version was actually not much better, really. It was still really dark and hard to see anything. What were your thoughts on the trailer, Mr. Nayrman?
I was kind of disappointed because it really didn't show much of anything. I mean, we finally got to see Ben Affleck in the suit a little bit, but that was about it. We got the Batman voice, and it was just a whole bunch of narration and not much else. So I'm kind of disappointed in it. I'm still super hyped for the movie because I'm a big Superman and Batman fan, so seeing them on screen together is going to mean a lot to me. But as far as trailers go, this one was pretty weak.
So you don't think that it was like a rush decision by... this is just going back away from the trailer, just back to the premise a little bit in general, before we discuss the trailer more. You don't feel it was a rush move by DC to put Batman and Superman together in a movie directly after the first Superman movie? You don't think they should have given the Superman franchise a little bit more time to breathe before trying to mash it up?
Not necessarily. I don't feel it's a bad move considering literally everyone knows who Superman is at this point. I mean, it's not like he's one of the most famous superheroes ever, probably the most famous just in terms of the name and what he can do and so forth. So I don't think it's a rush move considering the character they're using. I would feel it's a rush move if they started with, say, Flash or Wonder Woman and then suddenly went to a team-up movie. But as far as Superman and Batman goes, you can kind of just go right into that because we all know who they are at this point.
Okay, fair enough. So it was obviously as a teaser trailer. I mean, they're not trying to give away too much at this point. The movie is still obviously very unfinished. It's going to be released next year, so they'll obviously have a lot of time they're going to spend in post doing more special effects, more editing, things like, testing with audiences, things like that. So what are your thoughts in general? I mean, obviously this trailer is now confirmed that the Batman vs Superman is going to be a kind of an adaptation of The Dark Knight Returns, which is obviously a Frank Miller classic. What are your thoughts on that?
I think if you were going to do a Batman v Superman, it's going to be the one you use, considering it's probably the most famous fight between the two, and it's probably the most interesting one, if only because of all the socio-political stuff behind it. Obviously, this movie's going a very different route with the socio-political stuff behind it, compared to Dark Knight Returns, which was obviously made in the 80s versus something now, after Man of Steel, but the same basic premise is kind of there. It's just a bit of a role reversal between Batman and Superman, although it's not quite the same, but it's going to be Batman vs. Superman from The Dark Knight Returns in the general sense. I doubt we'll get a huge Batman kind of victory sort of thing, considering this is going to lead into Justice League and a whole bunch of other things, so I'm pretty sure the ending will be different, but I'm pretty sure the main fight will be very similar to the actual graphic novel.
Yeah, well, I mean, certainly, obviously, from the very small amount that we saw, the Batsuit armor at the end looked almost identical to what he wore in the comic, and obviously his just general Batsuit, his normal one, also looks very similar to the Frank West version. Frank West, Frank Miller, good God. Again, too early, God. Yeah, so, I mean, moving aside from that, how do you feel? I mean, because this is going to be a bit of a hack job, obviously, as you said. They're going to, in all likelihood, they are going to change the ending. I'm not going to spoil a 20-year-old comic for people. I don't know why, but if you haven't read Dark Knight Returns, go out and do so, because it's one of the moments of brilliance from Frank Miller, as opposed to his usual moments of insanity. But that said, they're going to be, this movie, as we all know, is going to be the launch pad for the Justice League movie. So we already know for a fact that that Wonder Woman is going to make an appearance as well. There are talk of other characters that you mentioned, like Cyborg making cameos, things like that. Again, I kind of worry because in the past, whenever studios have tried to add too many characters to a movie, it's always turned out poorly. I mean, Batman Returns, Superman, early, Spider-Man 3, things like that. Those have always been great examples of just too many elements being thrown into a movie. Do you think that that is going to be a risk here?
Oh, it's certainly a risk. I'm not saying it's not, but there is a very important example of it working, which was the beginning of the Justice League cartoon in the animated universe, where we kind of had barely any interaction with Flash, Green Lantern, no Wonder Woman, no Hawkwoman, no Martian Manhunter. It was just kind of Batman and Superman were established, and then everyone was just kind of just thrown in the last second for the Justice League in a sense. So there is one good example of it working, but there are a bunch of examples of it not working, so I'm in a wait-and-see mode, at least as far as other characters go. From what I've been reading and hearing, that other characters are mostly just getting cameos or one-scene deals. It's mostly going to be focused on Batman and Superman, so we'll just kind of have to see. I'm not really sure what to think of it until we see more of it. I mean, if we get a lot more of the characters, maybe I'll worry a bit more in trailers, but for now I can't really say anything considering we haven't seen them at all.
Yeah, fair enough. Now, one final question I do have for you is that obviously, the Justice League movie is going to be DC's big answer to the Avengers, which is just currently making all the money in the world all the time. So they want a piece of that pie, and that's completely understandable. What I'm kind of curious about is that the Avengers as a movie works very well because all the characters in the MCU are tonally, they're very similar. There are very few characters in the Marvel Universe that are very dark, very gritty, or super light and super goofy. They all kind of tread that line in between. Whereas in the DCU, to my personal opinion, is that there's more of a gamut. You have characters that are very bright and very colorful and very goofy, and opposed to that, you obviously have the very dark, very brooding characters as well. Do you think that it's going to be possible to take a character like Batman, who, as we know, is obviously the most darkest and broodiest character of pretty much all the DCU, and put him next to someone like Green Lantern, who makes bright green fluorescent constructs, which are usually something like, fly swatters or a giant hand or things like that? Do you think that that can work?
I think it can work. Again, I point to the DC animated universe where it kind of worked well. We'll kind of have to wait and see, but I think it can work. It really just depends on how you balance everyone. I feel it'd be a good contrast to Marvel in this way, whereas everyone is kind of tonally the same. You have all the characters working together in a way that they're not all the same, but they find a way to get past their differences. So I'm kind of interested to see how they'll actually balance everyone. I think the important thing is the balance versus kind of relying on Batman and Superman to kind of carry the load and kind of hope everyone is liked, whereas Marvel had the whole, build up so they could pick and choose which characters worked. And in their case, kind of all of them did, but, kind of got to pick and choose which characters were in the Avengers versus, say, DC, where they kind of had to throw their big guns all at once.
Fair enough. Last thoughts on that. Do you have any thoughts on Wonder Woman? At the moment, I kind of think the woman, Gal, whatever her name is, I can't remember. I'm not really happy with that as a casting choice. I don't think she can act for a start. I've seen her in Fast and Furious. She really can't act. And second to that, I just don't think she really suits the look of Wonder Woman, of the Amazon warrior born. Do you have any thoughts on that?
The only thing I can say to that is, obviously they're very different kind of actors, but remember when everyone hated Heath Ledger being chosen as Joker, and that turned out fantastic? Now, I'm not saying Gal Gadot is Heath Ledger in terms of acting ability, but I'm in a wait and see mode until we actually get to see her in a trailer or something.
Fair enough. Good answer. All right, moving on from there, we have it's been a week of trailers, so we're just going to be talking about that because Star Wars Battlefront has had its big announcement this week, as well as a trailer being released for it. There was a news embargo which actually got broken about a day early, but that was the big reveal for Star Wars in terms of gaming, at least. I just watched the trailer. I was very impressed by it. It looks on a graphical level, it looks amazing. It looks almost like real life, realistic. Are you excited for this? Are you looking forward to Battlefront? I've never personally been a big fan, but obviously you have some interest there.
Yeah, I was a big fan of Star Wars Battlefront 1 and 2 for the PlayStation 2, so I'm certainly interested in 3 for the upcoming fall release, but I'm a bit worried because it's EA. It's EA and they always butcher everything they acquire, so... I mean, first we heard there's no campaign mode, and then there's no space battles, and it's just kind of like, you're cutting all the fun parts out. So it's just kind of a multiplayer fest, which I didn't want it to exactly be. Now, the multiplayer is a big component of any shooter. I'm definitely looking forward to it. But the fun of it was kind of like all the Star Warsy things you could do in single player mode. But I guess we'll just have to see how it turns out. I was really impressed with the visuals. They came out really well, but I'm pretty much assuming it's CG at this point until we get actual gameplay.
Well, the trailer that I saw specifically said at the beginning of it that it was in-game footage, that it wasn't CG. It looks CG, but unless they're just lying through their teeth, I mean, that's what they're saying.
It's EA, they lie through their teeth all the time.
They are the evil empire. Bobby Kotick, he rules it with an iron fist.
Yeah, I mean, like...
Oh, no, wait, that's Activision. Never mind. God. Ah!
Yeah, and until we get actual multiplayer gameplay footage of people actually playing the game, I don't believe that's in-game footage. I've been ruined too many times by trailers saying that, so I refuse to believe that is until I actually see gameplay.
Yeah, well, we certainly had the obvious incidents with things like Watch Dogs and whatnot, where we were promised that it was in-game footage, and it was in-game footage, but obviously upon release, it was actually toned down and scaled down for reasons, I guess, I don't know. But I suppose in that sense you are right to be wary of that kind of thing.
Yeah, so that's just me personally. If you want to think it's in-game footage and want to hope it is, more power to you. I've just been burned too many times to really kind of fall for that.
I've seen some shit, man. I've been through this before.
Nah.
What do you think about, I mean, I'm not sure how big a Star Wars fan you are. Obviously there are some canon tweaks going on there. Things like there are AT-ATs on Endor, Darth Vader makes an appearance at the end of the trailer, things like that. Any thoughts on that particular kind of thing?
It's a non-canon shooter game, so I don't really care. It's just, for the fun. So I'm a pretty big Star Wars fan, but I really don't care about breaks in continuity when it's just kind of meant to be a fun multiplayer shooter. So I'm not too concerned about canon hiccups.
Fair enough. And speaking of Star Wars, of course, we got the second teaser trailer this week that came out from Abraham's Wars, as I like to call it. It was longer. It showed more things. It was wider, deeper, thicker, girthier. All those things. What were your thoughts? That's the first and foremost thing that I want to know.
I really liked it. I'm actually really looking forward to this movie now, so I was pleasantly surprised at how good it looked.
I have to say, I've been very, very skeptical of the new Star Wars movies, first and foremost because I'm not J.J. Abrams' biggest fan. I think he does have a great eye for visual flair. I think he's probably right up there with Zack Snyder as one of those directors who has a really great, very strong visual style. That's not my problem. I've always kind of had taken more issue with his writing and his subject matter and things like that. That said, so yeah, I was not very excited about Star Wars just because I just didn't want to see it go down roads of other things that he's done that I didn't like at all. That said, I gotta say, I was actually pretty impressed with the trailer. Even though I have been probably my biggest problem has been the idea that they have brought back all the original cast, because I didn't want to see my childhood being destroyed by seeing, a 60-plus-year-old, Harrison Ford, Carrie Fisher, Mark Hamill, that kind of thing. But at the end of the trailer, when you see Han show up and, say those lines, I gotta admit, I had a big smile on my face. I can't lie.
Yeah, that was the same for me. I knew early on it was going to be more of a torch-passing movie, rather than a focus on Luke, Han, and Leia, so I was okay with them being there. I was just more concerned at how they were going to be treated, whether they were going to be paraded around as this big deal, or if they're going to be kind of just a part of the movie, so I guess we'll have to wait and see on that. But yeah, seeing Harrison Ford and Chewie back together was kind of a big goofy smile moment for, I think, a lot of people.
Yeah, well, it's obviously going to be. They showed a lot of shots of the Black Stormtrooper that we saw in the first trailer. He's cropped up a lot, so obviously he's going to be a major character in the movie. We also saw a female along with him, who looks like she might be a Jedi or something. I'm not sure. It's kind of the vibe that I got from her, or a Force user at least. Do you have any speculation on that?
There's some speculation that the black guy may be a Jedi as well, although I believe his name is Finn, but I'm not sure. We also saw a little bit of the actual Sith Lord in the movie, so that was pretty impressive. As far as the two other characters we mentioned go, we haven't seen much of them, so I don't know what to say. They're obviously kind of using the Mark Hamill voiceover and Han Solo thing at the end to kind of build up the hype machine, before the movie actually comes out.
Yeah, and obviously it's a lot of gratuitous shots of the Millennium Falcon, things like that. I do like the fact that he's paying homage to the earlier Star Wars movies with a lot of he's already seen a lot of the shots, especially in the cockpit shots of the X-wings and whatnot. That it all looks very similar to the original framing of the Star Wars movies and things like that. So I do appreciate that he is obviously trying to do right by what preceded it. And honestly, as I said to a friend after watching the trailer, the other thing that really excited me about it was that I'd forgotten what it was like to watch a Star Wars movie or, any Star Wars TV show or anything else that wasn't just, jam-packed with crap that was designed to sell toys.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there'll obviously be toys of the new Model X-Wing, of Millennium Falcon again, so on and so forth, but it's nice to see there's not a whole bunch of stuff crammed into it. I mean, we see a lot of X-Wings in a shot, we see a lot of TIE Fighters in a shot, but it's not just... It's all there for a purpose. It's not there just to be filler, look at how much stuff we can shove on screen, sort of thing.
Yeah, there was no gratuitous use of, CGI characters or anything like that. I mean, obviously we can talk about Jar Jar Binks all day, but I mean, the character was designed first and foremost to sell fucking toys. And so the fact that that's just not being crammed down our throats from day one is it's actually pretty refreshing for me.
Yeah, same here. Only other thing I want to mention is, man, they got their costumes up good, because a friend of mine who's part of the 501st Legion got his new clone trooper, or stormtrooper, chrome trooper, whatever they're called now, his new design outfit out for the Anaheim Con.
Nice.
Yeah, so that was pretty impressive to see all of his photos on Facebook and stuff.
Very cool. Final thought on that. What are your... where do you stand on crossguard lightsabers?
I'm okay with it. It's not inherently any more ridiculous than any other things we could have gotten. As long as it's used effectively, as long as it's just not the tooth, crossguard is just there for kind of decoration at this point, as long as it has a functional use.
You don't see the obvious fault in logic that if two lightsabers crossed and they slid down to the hilt, the position of the actual emitter on the crossguard would be cut off?
Never quite thought of that.
That's the point of a crossguard. That's why you have it.
True.
Oh my gosh. Alright, moving on from the Star Wars. We're getting back to some video games for a change. We're going to talk about Mortal Kombat X, Mortal Kombat 10, whatever you want to call it. The kind of rebootish Mortal Kombat. Yeah, it got released this week. It finally dropped. It actually came out a day early in Australia, or at least, because someone went ahead and broke the street date, and I'm not sure how you guys handle that kind of thing in the US, but basically in the good old land of Oz, if anyone actually breaks the street date and starts selling a game early, which is obviously going to result in some fairly hefty fines from the publisher and things like that, everyone else gets to sell it. Basically, it's open season, and the game gets released by everyone the moment the street date gets broken.
Huh, interesting. I'm not really sure what the policy is. I believe everyone is still kind of under the street date policy, and the people in question who release it early just get a whole lot of fines and maybe a bit of blacklisting from the publisher.
Anyway, well, that's interesting. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Yes, well, that is interesting, but it did get released this week, and it's new, it's different, it's a much more kind of serious Mortal Kombat. I mean, Mortal Kombat's obviously always been about the blood, the guts, the gore, things like that, but this seems to be more of I think it's more of a reinvention of Mortal Kombat, because it seems to be taking itself more seriously than it has in the past. If you had a chance to check this out, are you at all interested by the old MK franchise?
I've never been a big follower of the story. All I know is that Sub-Zero and Scorpion hate each other for some reason, and everyone likes to tear each other's heads out in fights.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Well, it came out this week for PS4, for Xbox One, and for PC. Apparently there is a PS3 version on the way, but it has not been released yet. I myself picked up the Xbox One version. I did stream it for a while, which I'll plug later. But yeah, I checked it out, and it looks great. I mean, what really impressed me about it is that I'm a Street Fighter fan. I'm a fan of Street Fighter. Obviously, I love my Capcom fighters. I've never been as big on Mortal Kombat as I have been on Street Fighter, but I have to say that there are so many things that Mortal Kombat does better than Street Fighter. I mean, it does tutorials extremely well. They're much more in depth. They're much richer than what you get from Capcom. Capcom rely on the player. You know what? They don't even rely on the player. They just give you a bunch of trials. They don't even give you tutorials most of the time. They did for Street Fighter Cross Tekken. They did not for Street Fighter 4. But yeah, it's more in depth. And when you get to the actual story mode, I mean, it has a story and it's really big. It's very sweeping. It has a lot of cutscenes in it, things like that, which play out this big story about Earthrealm getting invaded again by the forces from Outworld again. But that aside, it's had a lot of love and care and attention lavished upon it, which is something that you definitely do not get with any Capcom game. Capcom games are just like, you play an arcade mode, you get an opening, you get a middle scene, you get an end scene, and that's it.
Huh. So what would you say the story is kind of the driving point for Mortal Kombat now compared to other fighters?
Well, I mean, online is always going to be the backbone of any kind of fighting game. If you don't have, as you said with Dead or Alive, if you don't have online, why are you bothering? I mean, that's just it. And that said, DOA does have a decent story mode, but it wouldn't compare to MK. And so yeah, I would not say it's a driving factor. However, I would say that it is a very good selling point in their favor. I mean, it obviously shows that the studio is very committed to trying to put out a quality product, and they should be rewarded for it. I think that people should check it out because of that. Because otherwise, you just get Capcom ruling the world, which is not. I'm a fanboy, so it's not a bad thing. But I would love it if Capcom paid the same kind of care and attention to their games that NetherRealm Studios have obviously done for Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, I definitely see. I would prefer to have my story. I mean, my fighting games to have a bit of story, to have a bit more meat to it, rather than these guys are fighting because it's a fighting tournament. Go. So, have any favorite characters in the story or any particular standouts?
I haven't had too much of a chance to play it yet, just because I work all day and I stream and edit videos mostly in the evening, so I haven't had too much chance to play it. I am enjoying Cassie Cage. I do want to play her some more. I do want to check out Melina. I was going to check out Scorpion, but I was only going to check him out for the teleport shenanigans, and Melina seems to have those already, so I'll probably just stick with trying to learn those two for the moment, and if I'm not satisfied with either of those, I may expand from there.
Yeah, sure. I'm only aware with some of the characters, so I'm kind of just aware with the original characters. How do you feel the online mode is? Have you tried that?
Yeah, I haven't actually tried the online mode at all, just because I'm still trying to learn the game. Because it is like, look, again, this shows like the care that and the dedication that they have to trying to bring people on board to the franchise, which I think is really admirable. MK has very specific inputs for their moves. A lot of their moves are very back, forward, up, down, or down, forward, that kind of thing. There's very few rolling motions in there. There's very few fluid motions. It's all about sharp, angular, fast motions when you're doing inputs for special moves and things like that. But since Injustice, which came out after Mortal Kombat 9, they've had an alternate control scheme. They've actually gone to all the trouble of figuring out an alternate control scheme to allow people who, like me, who are Capcom players, who do have that kind of mindset just hardwired into their brain from years of playing those games, that you can do rolls, you can do half circles, you can do that kind of thing as an alternate control scheme to get the same moves, if that's what you're more comfortable with, and I think that's a really great idea.
Oh, that's definitely a huge help for players who are more inclined to play different arcade fighter games. It definitely seems like they really put a lot of effort into this game, and I can really applaud them for that. So much so that I may actually try it out sometime.
Oh, interesting. The other big interesting news that came out of that was that it was released on PC, so as a surprise to, once again, absolutely nobody, it took about 3 days, I think, maybe that. It might have been less than that, for the modders to get into the source files and start rummaging around, and they found out a way to unlock basically every character who was included and has not been available for unlock yet. So you can now unlock the final boss of the game. I'm not going to spoil who it is for anyone who wants to see it. You can unlock Rain, you can unlock Baraka, you can unlock any other character that was basically there, which is obviously designed to be unlocked via the crypt or via DLC later, I don't know. But yep, they're there, they've got their full control schemes, they've got their fatalities, they've got their X-ray moves, all that kind of thing.
Good old modelers ruining everything for developers since, the dawn of the internet.
Pretty much. Yeah, there was a brief controversy relating to one news outlet did state that they thought they had found some on-disc DLC which was included in the source files. That was quickly completely decimated by Ed Boon himself, the producer of the game, who said on Twitter that they hadn't checked their facts, and it turned out they hadn't, because all they'd done was just do a quick Control F search through the files, and they found some file placeholder names that were there, and they just went, "Oh, this must be DLC." Turns out it wasn't.
Oh well. That's only one news outlet, and it's not a particularly major one from what I know, so sucks to be them, I guess.
That is very true. Now, moving on to what will probably be our final subject. We may bitch about some other things afterwards. I don't know. Smash Bros. Got 2 updates this week. It got Mewtwo, it got, along with some new costumes, I believe, and also got some balance tweaks, which were designed to nerf the living crap out of Diddy Kong.
Yeah, pretty much. The 2 main ones were, of course, Mewtwo and the nerfs to Diddy Kong. The costumes are nice, if only because of the Mega Man X and Proto Man costumes, but the rest of the costumes really don't matter too much, at least to most people, unless you really want to play as Dunban in this game from Xenoblade Chronicles. But ultimately, I'm really impressed with Mewtwo. I'm glad that he's back from Melee. I'm glad that he feels very similar to how he did then, but they kind of buffed him up a little bit to be more powerful. But yeah, I went online the day of, and everyone was playing Mewtwo.
Mewtwo's everywhere.
The other particularly interesting thing is that we had a source code diver, I believe hangs out on Reddit a lot, found 2 kind of victory jingles, one for Roy from Fire Emblem, who was last seen in Melee. And interestingly, they found one called Ryu, and it was a Street Fighter theme, so we may actually be getting Ryu from Street Fighter and Smash Bros. As DLC.
It's possible. There have been instances of that kind of thing before, and it has turned out to be more just unused assets that were going to be used and just wound up being abandoned for whatever reason. I think the best example of that I can think of was actually Marvel vs. Capcom 3, where some people went diving through the content on discs there and actually found an alternate opening sequence which was never used for the game. It was fully rendered, had all the music, it looked fucking amazing, but they just decided not to go with it.
Yeah, but what was interesting is that this was part of the DLC pack versus on the disc or on the card for the 3DS version. This was actually part of the update for the Diddy Kong nerfs.
Okay, interesting. What are your thoughts on the Diddy Kong nerfs? Because, I mean, obviously, as people, if anyone who's watched my Smash videos knows, I am absolutely just awful at the game and have no concept of how to play it properly whatsoever. So a character like Diddy Kong, obviously, to me, I tried him out, I couldn't see what was so OP about him at all. So is this an overreaction? Is this something that is designed to placate the top level players rather than, or is Diddy Kong just so overpowered that even in a modest person's hands he can really deal some serious damage?
It kind of just depends on how much research you're willing to do. If you go and kind of look up how Diddy plays, and you realize that, oh, they're kind of doing these few specific things over and over that are really overpowered and kind of decimating characters to the point where there's not much you can do against it unless you really counterpeg against Diddy. It was kind of necessary. It was just kind of needed to say, okay, let's tone his power down a little bit, let's tone his knockback a little bit, so those few things that he is good at aren't quite so overpowering to most characters.
Fair enough. What's interesting to me about this is the fact that they released a balance patch at all. Is this the first time that they've ever released a balance patch for Smash?
No, they had a few minor patches before the Mewtwo one. Just the Mewtwo was the big update, so that kind of came with the patch, but they had done a few, I believe 1 or 2 small patches beforehand, just kind of tweaking characters or kind of balancing a little bit here and there.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. But my point more was the fact that that Smash, as it currently is the first Smash Bros. Game that they have released patches for, which I find very interesting because in the past, they've obviously, you know, this is Nintendo, and Nintendo is fun. Nintendo is for families. And they were always stressing that they just wanted it to be a fun game for people to fuck around with and not take seriously in competition. And obviously their attitude towards that kind of thing changed a couple of years ago when there was the huge petition to get to be playable, to get Brawl to be playable, sorry, not Brawl, Malay, to be playable in Evo, and they did that. There was obviously the furor about them banning it, and then them retracting that and allowing it to be played, and things like that. So is this a sign that Nintendo is really starting to acknowledge the competitive scene and embrace it rather than trying to distance themselves from it as they have in the past?
It's clearly some kind of reaction to it. I believe this is them kind of understanding that, hey, even casual players will find one or two characters that seem to be better than everyone else in this sort of game. So if there's one kind of glaring oversight, let's try and patch it out. It's obvious they're not going to go with a fine-tooth comb and try and balance every little minute detail like, say, Capcom does with Street Fighter at times, but this is just more of a, okay, let's make it more fun for everyone, including those hardcore players who go to tournaments and play really high level with their friends and such.
Fair enough. Well, that's interesting. That's probably all we can really talk about with Smash. Was there anything else you want to discuss this week? We were going to talk about how dumb Boruto's name was, but we decided we'd already covered that last week.
Boruto's name is stupid.
There was a trailer released for the Boruto movie, but it looks like the producers have gone with the bold new direction of having Boruto act exactly like his father.
Boruto's name is stupid.
Okay, fair enough. Was there anything else? You mentioned the Attack on Titan live action was coming, got released. Any thoughts?
The CG doesn't look like crap. Hallelujah, Japan, you're finally learning.
Fair enough. I think that's kind of it for me. Yeah, I don't really have anything else to say. Anything else from you?
No, I'm pretty much good. I'm glad we managed to have a really good series of actual news this week versus, say, the last couple weeks where there wasn't much going on.
We did. You guys don't understand. We sit there for like hours before a podcast scrounging for topics sometimes. It's hard doing this.
Yeah, it can be.
Alright, Mr. Nayrman, where can people find you if they want to try and track you down?
You can find me on my YouTube channel, Brain Scratch Coms, or you can find me on Twitter under the handle NayrmanBSC.
Excellente. As always, you're listening to this on my YouTube channel, so you know where that is. If you want to find me on Twitter, you can find me at @KaneProvis, KaneProv for Victor IS, or you can track me down on Twitch at twitch.tv/red_gambit, where I do all kinds of streaming at really unusual hours because I live in Australia, unless it's on the weekend. Anyways, that's it for us. We're out of here. We'll catch you guys later. Have yourselves a good week.